All right, welcome and thank you for joining. My name is Ashley Lusick, and I am a health educator for community health at Atlantic Health System. Today's webinar, Does Coffee Really Affect Your Sleep? Is presented by Dr. Matthew Epstein, board certified in sleep medicine, fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, associate medical director of Atlantic Health Sleep Centers, and clinical assistant professor of Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. Before we begin, I have a few announcements. This webinar is being recorded. All participants are muted. If you have a question, please use the Q&A for questions or the chat for comments. At Atlantic Health System, we encourage everyone to be an active partner in their healthcare. We recommend using an online tool called MyChart to help you manage your care. MyChart is an interactive tool that gives you 24/7 access to your electronic medical record. Anyone who is a patient with Atlantic Health System can open a MyChart account. This includes anyone who has visited an Atlantic Health System provider for routine visits, vaccine visits, or even an Atlantic Health System emergency room visit. If you are not a patient of Atlantic Health System, you may have access to MyChart or similar platforms through your usual provider. MyChart allows you to manage many aspects of your healthcare. Some of the most popular features allow you to request your medical records, access your medical information, test results, medications, allergies, diagnosis, send non-urgent messages to your provider's office to request medication refills or ask questions, view your clinical notes and after visit summaries, schedule appointments online, e-check in for appointments, which makes the check-in and rooming go much faster. This also includes the ability to e-sign certain documents, view and pay your hospital bills online, share your MyChart with family, friends, and vice versa. For example, you can get access to your child's MyChart so you can manage the whole family from one account, or senior parents can also give access to adult children. If you want to set up a MyChart account, need help logging into a current account, or have questions about how to use MyChart, there is help available 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I am now going to turn things over to Dr. Epstein.
All right. Thank you, Ashley, and welcome everyone. And I am going to start. So, yeah, the topic is, does coffee really affect your sleep? And we are going to be getting to that. And before we do, I'm actually going to start by talking a little bit about sleep in general, and then coffee, and then how the two can affect one another. And I want to start by talking about the importance of sleep in achieving optimal health and performance. And I want to really focus on the benefits, challenges, and strategies to sleep well. And caffeine, does overlap with some of these issues. And I imagine that everyone who's on this webinar today is interested in achieving the best health that you can. And we all focus a lot on nutrition and diet and exercise, but really there's a third essential element to getting optimal health, and that's sleep. And when we think about sleep, it's, some people might say, well, you just, everything shuts down and you're kind of, it's like turning off a switch, but it really isn't. It's much more than that. Sleep is a very active, complex, highly organized process that affects our brain and all of our organs, our entire bodies. And we measure sleep with with something called polysomnography. Which is, this is a picture of someone who's getting tested at a sleep center. And we can measure all different things related to our brain activity and other bodily functions. And everything is very different when we're asleep. It's not just turning a switch off. And we can also measure sleep with different stages. So there's light sleep, there's deep sleep, there's dreaming, and each of those stages of sleep also plays different but really crucial roles in terms of our health and functioning. And sleep is really vital for optimal health, as I said, and it has, really very important effects on our cardiovascular system, so our heart and circulation, on our metabolism and weight, on living longer. Sleep is crucial in the workplace for optimizing work performance and productivity and safety. And sleep also has a very important effect on physical performance. So if you're athletic or an athlete, sleep helps with reaction time, accuracy, speed, endurance, etc. And sleep is also key for mental health, so social functioning and mood, and if you're a student, and just overall quality of life. And lack of sleep has a profound detrimental impact on health. Sleep deprivation isn't good for our brain or our heart or our metabolism. And sleep deprivation can lead to susceptibility to infections. There are many studies showing that, including, most recently COVID. Sleep deprivation has all kinds of adverse consequences on mental health, so it can affect anxiety, depression, mood, etc. Sleep loss makes it harder to lose weight and actually favors weight gain. And sleepiness is more important than alcohol and drugs as the greatest identifiable and preventable cause of transportation-related accidents. And there's a huge economic cost of sleep deprivation. This shows, a world map from a few years ago, the estimated cost of sleep deprivation. It's in the billions, tens of billions, or even hundreds of billions of dollars, if as a consequence of not getting enough sleep. And numerous expert guidelines endorse getting adequate sleep. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine, National Sleep Foundation, and most recently, the American Heart Association. But unfortunately, most of us don't get an adequate amount of sleep. And this is a map showing, a map of the US showing, different areas where we get less than the estimated 7 hours of sleep, which is the recommended minimum amount of sleep. And you can see in the darker areas, it's up to nearly half of working adults don't get 7 hours of sleep. The lighter areas, it's more like a quarter, but clearly we are sleep deprived. Sleep hygiene or sleep habits play a major role in getting good sleep. This refers to activities and behaviors that interfere with our sleep and make it harder to get sleep. And we have a natural tendency to stay up late. So it's much easier to stay up than it is to go to bed. And this is Thomas Edison. So the invention of the light bulb was kind of the first step in the downward trend in our ability to sleep or our choice of sleeping. And this was a poll that came out a year before the pandemic. It looked at the percentage of adults in this country who have lost sleep from different activities. So nearly 90% of us lose sleep from staying up late to watch a show or Netflix, something like that. 2/3 of us lose sleep from reading, staying up late. Sports, video games, all have a detrimental effect on our sleep and getting enough sleep, bringing the computer or the phone into bed. But really, we live in a 24/7 society these days. 1 in 5 of us winds up taking medication to help us sleep. It may be more than that if you include supplements like melatonin and things like that. And if we think about, in 2024, what a lot of people have in terms of their lifestyle, we start our day with a visit to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, work from home, may take additional caffeine later in the day, stay up too late watching shows, then you pop you know, melatonin to help you sleep, but you go on your phone in bed, which is also not a good habit. Going on, you know, social media. So our day and night cycles are really not so healthy these days. And this can have a lot of consequences, as I mentioned earlier, with work and driving and other things. And so let's now switch gears and talk about coffee. And perhaps coffee is, you know, has gained in popularity and usage partly because we are so sleep deprived. Um, and next to crude oil, coffee is now the most common, the most important and sought after commodity in the world. But unfortunately, you know, we can't use coffee as a substitute for sleep, and a lot of us really do that. And this was a survey from the National Coffee Association showing that coffee beats out juice and water and every other beverage as the favorite in this country now. It's the #1 beverage. Worldwide, tea is a little more popular than coffee, and in certain countries, but also, you know, a big source of caffeine. And in the US, we consume nearly 2 cups of coffee a day for every individual in the country. So what's so good about coffee? Well, caffeine is probably the main reason that a lot of us consume it. And we'll talk about the effects of caffeine, but that's what gives you the boost and the energy and the wakefulness when you drink coffee. But coffee also has what chemicals called antioxidants, which may have some health benefits. Coffee and caffeine are rapidly absorbed, and the mechanism whereby coffee helps us feel more awake is based on blocking a chemical called adenosine. Adenosine is a molecule that we produce in our bodies and in our brain that makes us sleepy and tired. And the more awake you are, the longer that you're awake during the day, the more your adenosine builds up. So by the end of the day, you have a lot of adenosine, and that makes our brain sleepy. Coffee blocks adenosine. If you didn't get enough sleep, your adenosine level is going to be higher the next day. And again, the caffeine reduces that and sort of interferes with it in terms of it causing us to be sleepy. So when we have a cup of coffee or tea or cola or energy drink, or you pop a caffeine pill or anything with caffeine, what are the acute effects? Well, it can improve our mood, our alertness, our mental functioning. Vigilance is something where we kind of stay focused. It can help with that, and reaction time. It has beneficial effects with exercise, and a lot of athletes will tend to take caffeine for that purpose, and it can improve physical performance. And then there are possible health benefits to coffee, and we can't really be 100% sure whether it's the caffeine in the coffee or the antioxidants in the coffee or even other compounds. But there are a lot of studies that have looked at the benefits of coffee, and it's not 100% established, but there may be benefits with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. There may be benefits to heart health with coffee, diabetes. It can have gastrointestinal benefits, especially for people that have constipation. Caffeine is put in different medications for headaches, and there may be some reduction in development of cancer with caffeine, or coffee rather, and coffee may even improve mortality. The one issue with looking at coffee and health benefits is that people that might drink coffee might have other healthy lifestyle habits. So it can be hard to sort it out. Is it the coffee, or do people who drink coffee also exercise more or have a healthier diet or other things? So it's not 100% clear for all of these factors that I've listed. And then there are adverse effects of coffee. Coffee can cause people to have a racing heart or palpitations. Your muscles can be a little shaky. Coffee can increase anxiety. It can cause GI upset. It may lead to osteoporosis or weakened bones. And then there's dependence on coffee, so that if you don't have it, you can be really cranky and you have a headache and you don't feel well. So there's withdrawal from caffeine or coffee. And then the question of, how does caffeine interact with sleep? Well, clearly caffeine interferes with sleep. It can make it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. And if you look at people that drink coffee, they tend to sleep less overall. And when I showed earlier that our sleep is made up of different stages, well, caffeine will increase the lighter stages of sleep and reduce the deeper stage. So that was one of the questions that Ashley provided earlier. So yeah, coffee doesn't, and caffeine don't have the best effects on our sleep. So the question is, does it affect our sleep? Coffee, absolutely, and not necessarily in a good way. The real question is, do we consume caffeine to make up for impaired sleep, or does impaired sleep lead us to caffeine? And that's the question. Does the cycle begin with caffeine interrupting our sleep so we don't sleep as well, so we need more caffeine? And you kind of have to ask yourself, on a personal level, is this what's going on with me? Does my caffeine interrupt my sleep? Do I not sleep so well? Is that why I rely on caffeine or coffee? But clearly, caffeine is not a substitute for sleep. It's not equivalent to sleep. And if you don't get enough sleep, caffeine isn't going to help you. It's not going to take away the risk of insufficient sleep. And the lack of sleep is still going to pose risk on all those other health related conditions that I mentioned. So that's really the take that I have. So how do we sleep better? I mean, this should still be the foundation for for good health. We have to sleep better and we have to sleep enough. And a lot of this, again, goes back to what we call sleep hygiene, which are habits and practices that promote good sleep. And some basic sleep hygiene tips are to keep a regular sleep-wake cycle, avoid sleeping more than 1 hour later on weekends or days off, try to keep a regular wake time. We want to try to maximize the amount of light exposure we get during the day, especially in the morning. We want to avoid caffeine, alcohol, and tobacco. And if you're going to have caffeine or coffee, again, going back to our topic for today, you want to have the least amount that you can have and have it as early in the day as possible. So the more caffeine that you have and the later in the day that you have it, the more likely it's going to have an impact on your sleep at night. Taking a hot shower or a bath in the evening or close to bedtime can help us sleep. And then minimizing and reducing evening light exposure, and especially close to bedtime, is very important as well. We want to have a cool, dark sleep environment. You want to have time at night to unwind before you get into bed, where you can kind of resolve things and get everything done. So you're not, doing work close to bedtime or worrying or bringing in things that might be detrimental to getting a good night's sleep. Once you're in bed, try not to check the clock. If you wake up during the night and you look at the clock, it usually makes you more awake. So try to avoid that. And then if you can't sleep in the middle of the night, don't lie awake in bed. Go lie down on a couch somewhere. keep it dark and quiet, but you know, try to do things that will get you back to sleep. And then during the day, you know, you want to avoid dozing off or napping, because that can also have a detrimental effect on us, you know, when it comes to bedtime. So in general, strategies to sleep better are healthy lifestyle habits, so healthy diet and exercise. And then there are other things as well that we can incorporate if needed. You know, if you have trouble sleeping, something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And there are supplements and medications as well, but you know, those are usually not essential to good sleep. And but in general, as we've seen, most of us don't sleep enough, and that's really the bottom line. We want to get as much sleep as we can. And along with healthy diet and exercise, sleep is really essential in achieving optimal health.
So I would like to say we appreciate you all for joining today. We kindly ask that you take a few minutes after today's webinar to complete the program's survey. The link to the survey has been added to the chat for your convenience. A special thank you to Dr. Epstein for dedicating your time and expertise today. If you have additional questions or comments, you can send an email to communityhealth@atlantichealth.org or call 1-844-472-8499 option 3. That concludes today's webinar, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.